In its first 4 years, ChatGPT has reached 800 million weekly active users. That's almost 20% of our entire population. So if you take that into consideration, how long did it take us to reach that many active users on even just the internet? Well, if we compare the two, the internet had a linear growth curve. And the reason why is because it was dependent on infrastructure, on much slower methods of growth compared to something like ChatGPT and OpenAI. And you think about AI as a whole right now, the growth pattern is completely exponential. Yeah, AI was cool when barely anybody had access to it, but now that everyone has access to it, we're starting to reach this gap. Where the real trouble comes into play is when we actually overlap these two graphs and we have the linear mixed with the exponential growth of AI, because the problem is this is most people. Most people are going to be stuck in that linear growth path because right now we're here. You are here. X marks the spot. At this point, you have these linear people, these linear businesses, these linear minded individuals that are going in the exact same direction. And the problem is with AI, these are the late adapters, okay? Now, the early adapters are exponentially increasing their business. So if you think about it, even the smallest change here is going to double their business. And if we actually start to think about what that means for the landscape of business, agency, automation, life as we know it, there's going to be serious consequences for those who do not adopt AI. Which leads me to today's topic, which is why I'm all in on AI automation. If you guys are new here, I'm Dylan Michael. I currently run a $30K per month AI agency and pull in 6 figures with my AI consulting side where we build full systems and automations for our clients. And that's how I've been able to achieve large payments in full like this and travel and really do whatever I want to, is by capitalizing on the AI gold rush and by capitalizing on this space here, because all of these businesses, you already know, they see these businesses that are going exponentially to the stratosphere at this point. So my job is to help them adopt AI and actually close this gap for them. So there's this thing called the power law. The power law is a mathematical phenomenon that governs exponential systems, just like the development of AI. So what happens is a small number of players capture the vast majority of the value, because these big players who are taking AI to an exponential level, who are actually riding the wave of AI right now, they're going exponential. And what happens is often the first ones to adapt, the first ones to not even necessarily be that genius, but just solve a problem that almost seems obvious, like Google. Of course, you're going to need a search engine to search things up. That almost seems obvious, but they were the first ones. And because they were first and because they just grew faster than everyone else and they used everything to their advantage, they now control 90% of global search traffic. Same thing with Amazon. They became e-commerce itself, right? Competitors can't match their logistics network. Same thing with venture capital. 80% of returns come from just 20% of the investments. It's all about leverage and trying to see how we can put in as few inputs and get the most amount of outputs. And the critical rule of the power law is once you fall behind, you can never catch up. Imagine me trying to compete with Google. Imagine trying to compete with Amazon. You simply can't. But what makes them different? What makes them different is they were early adopters. Again, we have this opportunity with AI now where we can now be early adopters. And here's the thing. AI is the purest power law system that we've ever seen in business because it's following what we call scaling laws. And these are actually mathematical relationships that have been proven in research papers by OpenAI, Anthropic. And basically how it works is when you double the compute power, model size, data and systems, as we start to add more and invest more into these systems, and as they get better, get more information, more knowledge every single day, it compounds exponentially. And if we think about it, the obvious issue with that is that at some point, nobody can compete. And what these studies have shown is that 2x the data yields 5 to 8 times better performance, which means that giving the AI systems more data creates dramatically better systems. And simply 10xing the compute power produces 50x better outputs. So if you start thinking about this, it's not linear anymore. We're no longer operating at this level. Even the AI systems aren't, because we're not just talking about like the local mom and pop shop. They're cooked. That's why I have an AI agency, because they're absolutely finished. But if we look at the exponential growth of the AI system itself, we have the standard system that can just do linear work. But as soon as you start 10xing computational power, giving it more, letting it continue to feed itself, it just gets better and better and better, which is where we are right now. This is why only in the last few years, now we have something like Claude Code. And you have the founder of Anthropic coming out saying that Claude Code is essentially going to replace the need for software engineers within the next year, and that no one will be doing coding anymore. So those are all the most powerful applications. Those are the things that we are in touch with every single day. applications, softwares. That's everything that we do on our phone. So if we have our entire system being ran and coded by AI, then we have this very real gap. And now it's not just a gap, now it's desperation, because every business owner is now going to be struggling if they're not using AI. And the ones that are going to be using AI, again, there's 100x scale. Winner takes all. At massive scale, the advantages are going to become insurmountable. A lot of people think about this stuff way too small. We think about email, you think about texting, conversations in the DMs. We talk about closing, setting, simple systems, right? Sending documentation or files over to this team, that team, communication, the basics. But what happens when all that is being done completely automatically and you keep feeding the system? We talk about saving businesses hundreds of hours per month. But what happens when those hundreds of hours per month turned into thousands of hours of work for an agent that otherwise we simply couldn't? The simplest way to describe that is, before maybe we could only run one location with our business, but now with AI, you can not only have this location running automatically, but you can have it grow other locations automatically. So now we're just building out these massive web of productivity and systems, which I don't know if you guys are catching on here. This looks just like something like N8N, where now we can actually build out these agents and these teams to communicate with each other. And this brings us to what we call the compounding flywheel. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what a flywheel is, but as this continues to go, so let's just say more data, more AI, more automations, more systems. As this continues to run, we make more money. For example, we put that back into it. That gives us better systems, more solutions, more data, more information. All of a sudden, now we have an even bigger flywheel with an even larger pool of money. And then what does that lead to? That leads to another flywheel. Again, we used to have to do this the traditional way, the old-fashioned way. And this process right here would take years and years and years, because you gotta get the people, the resources, the labor, the information, the communication. There's all this time. But now I can literally do this right now in a single day, in an afternoon. And guess what? We can automate this entire system. So as there's more data available, we can have that automatically fed to an AI agent that's then constantly learning and making decisions and giving us feedback in real time without needing extra people or labor or any extra energy. So once a business deploys AI, they then enter that unstoppable loop where the advantages multiply forever, right? More data, customer interactions feed the system. The systems are giving us more customers, which gives us a larger pool to pick from. And then that feeds into better models, which is better results. And then that just continues to flywheel over and over again until we have the most optimized system. Think about Amazon, 200 to 600% faster fulfillment through AI-powered logistics. So 200 to 600%, think about that. That's what, 2 to 6x the entire business? I mean, that's actually insane. DHL, 25% reduction in labor dependency via automation. And again, I say this all the time. The reason why I'm so in on AI automation, especially this year, is because all these people who are running these companies are still these people. They're still these people with this linear mindset. That doesn't change. These people aren't consistently using AI to get better ideas, to get better thoughts, to keep going. These people are still clocking in every day to the office and doing what they need to do and going home, which is why we have such an opportunity now. Because if I want to just go be an exponential person, an exponential earner, an exponential everything, okay, I'll just go do it. I'll just spend more time trying to ask AI, trying to use leverage, trying to use everything that I possibly can. Otherwise, you're going to end up being still stuck at this spot. So this is why I say, like, I don't necessarily see the opportunity of AI automation really going anywhere, because at the end of the day, it's going to be all these people here, all these linear minded people here looking up and seeing all these people ahead of them who have more money, better businesses, better systems, and they're just going to absolutely leave them in the dust. Another great example, H&M, 70% of customer queries are fully automated. So if 70% of your business is completely automated, and again, these companies, I can guarantee you, are still leaving gaps in the table, because yeah, they might be fully automating their customer queries or this or that, but nobody is going to be perfect. And especially when we're talking about AI, we're talking about exponential speed versus linear speed. In any company where there's still humans involved, there's always going to be opportunity to implement and automate and be there to build out better systems for them. So we have the golden window right now, right? 77% of companies are testing AI. You know, who knows really what that means? They're testing AI. Okay, so you're using ChatGPT. None of these people, like I said, because they're still linear-minded people, are still thinking in the old. And the sad thing is, a lot of people are stuck there. They're not going to be able to accelerate at that pace because, I mean, we're not really prepared, necessarily even designed as humans, to constantly just exponentially grow like this and even know what to do with it. So many people, you ask them like, what would you do if you could use AI? And they think about, I'd automate my emails. Okay, great. You can automate your emails, but what else would you do? How would you fully automate your business? As AI operators, I go into a business, I see where their faults are, where they're wasting time and money, and we optimize and automate and try to get some source of artificial intelligence powering everything based on the information that we're giving it. 38% have deployed AI agents at scale, or AI. Now, this is actually a lot larger than you'd possibly think. And again, this goes into what's considered deploying at scale, but 38% of companies apparently are actually running AI in production in some way or another. And this study was 400 business owners across construction, manufacturing, and healthcare. And 77% of companies were testing AI. Now, these are much larger companies, right? So these aren't your lower end local service businesses or smaller companies. These are much larger companies. So 38% of them, though, have deployed it at scale, which what does that tell you? That tells you there's still only 38%. And I'm sure that's probably completely exaggerated because who actually knows, what's considered 38%? And 95% plan to automate. So what does that tell me? That tells me that if 95% of them are planning to use AI automation by 2028, that tells me that there's a massive opportunity for those of us who actually understand AI automation to go in and make a boatload of money. So the market opportunity, the global AI market is predicted to reach $3.6 trillion by 2034. And you can already assume exactly why, because I think we're just living in this bubble right now where everyone's either too afraid or too lazy to implement AI. And unfortunately, with AI, we're talking about the doers are going to use AI and exponentially grow to the top. And they're not going to struggle in this new economy. But anybody who takes too much time, who doesn't take any action here, I mean, they're screwed. The agentic AI market is going to reach $199 billion projected by 2034, which is literally the fastest growing segment in tech history. So congratulations, you're definitely in the right place. And 2026 AI spending, this is kind of crazy, is projected at $2 trillion. Now, we all saw the president's influx of cash going towards AI and going towards AI research. So we can already see where this is going. It's going towards having AI automate and run all of our systems. So at the end of the day, it kind of becomes like, do we want to be a part of that, take a percentage and make money? Or do we want to sit there and watch while the inevitable happens? So our opportunity, well, that means that there's going to be $2 trillion out there ready to be spent on AI. So again, the question becomes, do I want to be someone who can get a piece of the pie or not? And there's also a 3 million worker shortage because people don't want to work, whether that was by design or not. Companies need to automate or they're going to be screwed. The only problem is they don't actually know how to implement these AI systems, which is where we come in. So all you need to do is learn a little bit about AI, understand the systems, understand workflows, data transfer, and really hone in your skill of problem identification. And then you can very easily help these companies. I think too many people overcomplicate the fact that a lot of this is just workflows and then providing an AI agent with the knowledge and information in order to then make decisions and power those other workflows or agents. It's pretty straightforward stuff. This is the AI gold rush. And here's some examples that I wanted to give for you guys and things that I've seen personally with my own eye. We have healthcare. Product values are going to be anywhere between 8 to 20K plus. Patient intake automations, appointment scheduling, records management. Think about how many different little things and tasks in a business can be automated. Manufacturing, supply chain optimization. This is massive. Logistics, quality control systems, predictive maintenance. Any kind of forecasting or data analysis is massive. Professional services like simple agency work or B2B, lifetime value, especially charging an upfront fee or $1,500 a month for setting up an entire system that communicates with clients, gets leads, qualifies them, and books appointments. We're looking at 5 to 30K or more. It's going to be a limitless amount of money we can charge them. It's just going to depend on how much money we can make them. Document processing, client communication, workflow automation. Like I said, I have a cleaning construction company that I personally own, and a lot of it is documentation and speaking with insurance companies. And there's so much that goes into it. If I had all that automated, which now, of course, I do, there's so many companies out there that don't know how to automate, how to build these systems, how to make their life easier. And why is 2026 in particular a great year to go all in? I mean, first of all, better late than never. I'd say you guys are probably at least a year or two into this thing as far as we're talking about the AI automation gold rush. So now would definitely be a good chance. But the first thing is the maturity of the technology. Up until this point, GPT and Claude have been dog shit. I mean, let's just be honest. GPT has been terrible. GPT 5.0, it wasn't even that great. But I just go as far as when I see Claude MCP, I see Claude Code, I see what we can actually do in powering these agents. I see that I can legitimately build out an entire web app. I can have things entirely coded for me, projects designed, everything essentially right now that you would need to get you over the hump. If you think about how much time, and I really want you to take this in, to become an expert with coding or software development or really anything, think about how many hours of work went into just knowledge retrieval and trying to remember things and learn things so that you can call back to them, right? Now, all that time that would have had to have been spent learning and remembering and trying to process so that you can do it the next time, you don't need that at all, because the AI itself is the source of information that we're using to build with these projects, and it can actually now take action. So in my eyes, we're at a point right now, it's a very scary place if you're not implementing AI, if you're not looking to start building these AI systems. The next is the economic force. So like I said, we have a 3 million worker shortage, at least in the US, but there's 10,000 baby boomers retiring every single day, especially if you want to consider purchasing companies from, all these people who are looking to get out of the business. But how many people that aren't necessarily the most technical or technically savvy individuals, right? They're 40, 50 years old. They still have 15, 20 years of owning a business. I mean, these people aren't going anywhere. They have to adapt as well. So there's a massive opportunity there to help these people get over that hump and start to become more linear-minded individuals, right? They're not necessarily thinking or wanting to go exponential like that, because maybe for them right now, at that point in their life, there's really no point. But all companies right now are feeling that gap that AI is creating that we talked about earlier between the exponential and the linear. And what do you think is going to happen when more companies develop, more companies go exponential? They're going to be completely lost and just distraught at the fact that they can't compete anymore. And this is the questions that you need to be asking in your sales calls when you're talking to people is like, why do you think that is? Do you think the other companies are implementing AI and you're not? It's very simple for me to go in and close deals when I simply just ask questions about their competitors who are already doing 10x more than what they're doing, because it creates that FOMO, which is very real in this case, right? Because even just a few days late and you can miss a new update, you can miss a new change with AI. And again, if 72% of companies are deploying agents by 2026, at least in those fields that we talked about, right? Healthcare, manufacturing, companies like that, it starts to make you realize that we're no longer in a few years ago where, we have Will Smith here eating spaghetti in 2023, and this is what it looked like. And then we go to, now, and it's probably even better by today. This video itself was made in 2025. So in 2026, I can make a video right now that makes it look like a 4K video, right? So just think about the speed at which AI is advancing and how slow most of these companies are. They're going to be late movers. They're not going to win this until 2027. And us, we're going to be early adopters. And remember, anytime there's any kind of movement or new product or a new thing, which in this case is AI, there's going to be these 4 sections. The first section is going to be the early adopters. This, I'm going to say, was 2024, 2025. They're not skeptical at all. As soon as something comes along, they're the first ones to buy. They don't really need too much convincing. They just want the new thing. They want the best thing. And that's these people. Now, in the next quadrant here, this is quadrant 2. This is the early wave. I call it the early wave because it's that next wave of people and it starts to become a little bit more mainstream. These people now own 50% of the market essentially, or even more, right? Because this is really just a normal model for any other product. With AI, it's more like AI, if we look at it, like the early adopters are going to get this much of the market. And the problem is as time continues, there's less and less and less of the market to actually be grabbed, right? Because think about it, if you start too late, well, everybody already knows about AI. And if you start super late, in 2028 or 2029, there's pretty much nothing left. Everything is now automated by AI and your entire life is probably completely ran by AI and you don't even know it, right? So right now, that's why I'm able to make so much money with automations. Will it always be like that? Well, no, of course not. Not after the next few years, but that's like any business, any wave. Now, the thing is, I don't just build systems and walk away. What I do is I'll build the system, but I'll charge a monthly rate every single month to keep it going and to keep maintaining the system. Because of course, there's always going to be more AI, more information, more technology coming out on a day-to-day basis. Companies want to be like this. Once they know, oh shoot, and they see the power of AI, they want to stay in that exponential range. They're never going to want to go back to that linear growth pattern. They're always going to want this exponential pattern. So my goal is to attach myself as the one who's in charge of bringing everything forward for them exponentially. Because what does that mean? That means the more money they make, the more money I make. And I'm going to continuously get paid on a month-to-month basis because I've helped them to build out the system. I become the AI guy and I am the solution for their problems, which is a pretty powerful position to be in right now in 2026. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and leave a comment down in the description if you've started your AI agency, or if you've ever built an automation, or if you try building any of the automations on the channel. I'm going to make more videos like this talking about the actual business side of how to make money, and also some better automations to help you guys with automating your systems. And if you want to learn how to build and sell automations just like I do, I highly recommend you check out my school community down in the description. My link to book a call will also be down there as well if you want to work together or you need my help one-on-one. I'll see you in the next one.